Hi, my name is Deja Rubel, and this is a recording of a presentation I did for NASIG Autumn in the fall of 2023. Unfortunately, it's really hard for me to figure out how long my presentations are going to be, so I was doing that one at auctioneer speed, which is why I am reposting this, hopefully with deeper thoughts and slower talking. These views definitely do not reflect the views of my employer, which is why I've taken my name and my employer's affiliation off of these slides. Yeah, these are my thoughts and my thoughts only, and these are essentially anecdotal based on things I've seen on the listserv and thinking through the problem. So do not consider these, with the exception of some of the graphs, at all fact-based. So how exactly did we get to this current scarcity problem? Well, a good chunk of it was the Great Retirement, which the pandemic did facilitate. Another chunk of it, though, at least for my institution, was our automation librarian did not want to go through a system migration that was kind of foisted upon us at the time. Many of us in tech services not want to undergo the system migration. But in the case of our automation person, it was, the thing that pushed them into their retirement because they're like, nah, I'm done. I'm good. And I know this person wasn't the only systems librarian that's like, I am not in the mood to learn a whole bunch more software, so I'll just, mosey on to Mexico. So, yeah, the combination of a bunch of system migrations and the pandemic, we and our market lost a lot of potential employees. Which brings me to a nice little snapshot. Oop, that's the only downside. I have the remote or the mouse that double clicks on this computer at the moment. So, looking, using myself as a nice reference, I was tenured in 2020, and if you're looking back in the last few years before 2023, anybody that's tenured during this time, I would assume probably takes at least a year off. I know I was very burnt out when I got tenured, so if you're looking for people to hire, this group here in the yellow is probably not your best pool to look at because they just finished jumping through the hoops. Now, if they finish jumping through the hoops, they know like where they are, they might be willing to change. But for the most part, the group you're looking to target for your job ads is this group here, the early tenure track. And this should be more of a gradient, but this is what we get when Deja makes her own diagrams here. Because the people that were in the tenure hopper, for lack of a better word, so I'm trying to use these sort of as 5-year increments, and this probably should be overlapping this one a bit more. And your tenure was disrupted because of the pandemic. So in 2020, you were set back a year or possibly, 2 years, depending on your institution and your contract in the case of ours and our union. So if your clock was disrupted and you were given extra years, you might have made it into this pool of recently tenured. However, if your tenure process was disrupted entirely and you either got laid off or you couldn't make the tenure requirements, congrats, you might be back in this tenure track faculty labor pool. And I'll talk in a minute about, whether or not you can downgrade systems positions from being tenure track, but at the moment I'm looking at the pool of people that are similar to myself. And brings us to the primary group of people you should be targeting if you're looking for systems people, and that's this early tenure track group. So these people who were starting tenure, in 2015 or, anywhere during this process, and for whatever reason didn't get tenure, their position got eliminated. I know that happened during a lot of restructurings, or they were just, slightly disrupted, but not disrupted enough to where the committee said, no, we can't give you an extra year. They may have dropped out of the field entirely. And then there's also, as some folks probably noticed, the folks that were graduates during this period of time here on the far right. So these folks you could also target, but they're unlikely to have as much experience as you're seeking from, disciplined systems people. So consider that a little bit while we also bring up some other exciting, fun things to consider, namely pay. And we're getting a lot better as a profession about pay transparency. Like 10 years ago, there were way too many jobs that said things like pay commensurate on experience. And I'm just like, give us your bottom dollar. Let me know if I'm wasting my time with, or your time with even looking at this thing. It's not worth hiding the pay. And I know there's a lot of crafty ways to hide the pay, but try not to hide the pay. As terrible as, some of you are offering. Yeah, show the pay, show the pay. Which brings me to the second point in terms of the terrible wages. You really should not be opening faculty level jobs with 2 or 3 years of experience required for systems work at anything less than $75,000 to $80,000 at this point. Just looking at the market, and if you're trying to entice someone, especially to move, um, yeah, I live in a pretty depressed economic area, and even that amount, would be necessary to go to a city or anything like that. And as much as we hate to admit that, capitalism determines what exactly you think of yourself and your value in society, 67% of job seekers are still looking at the salary first and the rest of the benefits later. Especially with university hiring, a lot of the fringe benefits can be quite similar. So, yeah, the salary may be the thing that sets you apart, even if, you know, it's hard to get the salary um, out of administration. Salary transparency is also important for women and minorities because if you don't have salary transparency, you generally discover the reason for that is because they're underpaying people, especially in corporate environments. The pro of being in a university environment is that most people's pay can be discovered if you are willing to dig far enough. You may have to file FOIA requests, etc., and most people aren't willing to go that far. So please, please, please put the pay in the top or the important part of the job ad. And also keep in mind that our pay for systems work is exceptionally low compared to other technical professions. So my saying 75 to 80, that's very, very low coming out of undergrad starting wage for most technical jobs. On the plus side, we are may more what I call chill compared to other tech jobs. So, and I see I already hit the 11-minute mark, but that's okay. I'm just going to keep going. If it's 15 minutes, 15 minutes. This is YouTube. All right, so remote work. I know a lot of people's knee-jerk reaction to seeing the pay thing is, I can't offer more money. We ain't got more money. Or my personal favorite, which I'm going to discourage anyone from ever falling for, the union determines your pay, and the part I say don't fall for is your boss saying it'll be upped in the next contract. Yeah, I went through a very bad situation in which that did not happen, so get your pay on your way in if you are a person who is trying to get hired. Get it all while you can get it, because trust me, any chance to dick people around, yeah, some places will. Not gonna say all the places. So, and I have seen more and more hybrid work postings, and I am super excited about that, especially in a profession that is extremely female dominated. However, what I have not seen, and it might be due to taxes and other restrictions, are what I'm going to call full remote. So, where you don't actually have to leave your current place of abode, you do telecommuting. Granted, if you're new to the field or new to that particular university, you may have to work out some sort of agreement whereby you're going to have certain availability, X to Y. Maybe they monitor whether or not you're logging into the system. I don't know if I necessarily agree to that, because if you have a proven track record, they shouldn't have to trace you as much. But I also can understand from an employer perspective that the first year they may want to make sure that you're actually doing your job and not just, resting on your laurels from where they picked you up from. And also, if all the software is cloud-based in the library, now granted there are some hardware components where you're going to have to, be on the phone and troubleshoot with circ and things. Are you discriminating against people? Think about that. Because there's a lot of smart people who have moved to the country or are choosing to move out of cities, especially now that the country is getting more and more and better fiber optics every year. Is it a form of discrimination to not want to attract rural applicants? Just because they don't live like you? Think about that. All right. This is already getting a little too long, and I think I might have, yep, I did skip over a slide. Bring me to the next point I wanted to make. Systems work is very, very, very similar to apprenticeships, kind of like cataloging in libraries, only more so because systems, generally speaking, can't be tested or played with or sandboxed outside of having some sort of university affiliation. Now, Folio is a bit different. That's the great thing about Folio. You can set it up on your own machine and play around with it. But for most large systems, yeah, the nuances are learned through experience, and you are not going to get that experience until you happen to be somewhere that will give it to you. And of course, then you're back to the you need experience to get experience. I also wanted to point out that because this is more of a leveling up and a growth in an apprenticeship, I have issues with this whole idea that we can hire systems people at the consortia level and then eliminate this sort of middle tier or, the bottom tier entirely, and then everyone at the consortia will just, be cool and help out those below them. If you do that, you are basically killing whatever pipeline we have for systems librarianship, because you're only going to be able to deal with the people who are very sophisticated and understand a lot of programming and interconnections, and not so much the folks that, want to start a single library and grow their career. If Okay, sorry. Less complex systems positions. So it also makes the leaps more intimidating. That's the other part I wanted to make. So if you do that and you eliminate sort of these middle layers, and it's only the big consortia out there, those of us who do work at single libraries and want to make leaps can't feel as confident in making those career leaps. If you are hiring for things, try to do nice things like note that there's premium sandboxes. If you're willing to tolerate failure, try to put that in your ad. If you can list potential local support systems such as listservs, local organizations, etc. in your postings, that may encourage tentative applicants. I've seen a lot of language to do that already, which is great. But yeah, I just want to make sure that that language continues. The closest position to a systems librarian one, if you have to level up someone in your own house, and Lord knows it's happening to a lot of us in NASIG, is e-resources, simply because we are used to having to connect databases and manage databases and get them to talk to each other. So e-resources is very similar to systems, but it's definitely not the same. Systems being, in my opinion, way more complex. All right, a couple more points, and yes, I know we're getting to 16 minutes. Another solution, which has been done many times, is trying to downgrade systems librarian positions to non-faculty positions. On the plus side, it saves cost and might be able to get you somebody quickly. The minus side, though, these people know nothing about libraries. You're going to have to get them library familiar, which it takes a non-zero amount of time, let's put it that way. And I highly recommend, if you're going to try to do this to fix the pipeline, go over and reach out to your computer science departments now. Start talking to the undergraduates now. Find the computer science people that like to be in the library and try to sell them on the fact that our jobs, in comparison to many other IT jobs, are relatively low key. Now, I know those of you at larger universities are like, if things go down and the whole system is burning, it's bad. And I'm like, yes, it's bad. However, it's not rocket science. It's not doing agile development for Google. I mean, there's a lot of high pressure IT things you can go into. And in the grand schemata of things, libraries are pretty chill. I'm just going to admit it. And also, I believe if you get more young people over from the computer science department in similar places and get them experience with library technology, you're more likely to find someone who will enjoy it. All right, so this presentation ended up being 17 minutes instead of the 7 minutes I pitched it for. And the only thing I will leave you is the question I always ask, which, what is the meaning of life? And there's a lot of options. Okay, let's listen back at how bad this is.